Good day, Jamaica. This recording that is about to be played is of a telephone conversation between Toraino Beckford and Mr. Milton Walker of Television Jamaica. Toraino Beckford has been trying to secure a televised interview, in order to declare to the people of Jamaica his intention to represent them, as the first black, first Jamaican-born, head of state, in our nation's history. During the conversation, it will be evident that Toraino Beckford is not being given the opportunity to express his points, and the conversation just abruptly ended with no indication that he will be given the opportunity to speak directly to the people. Toraino Beckford has been in politics for over 6 years and has ran in 3 elections, and yet, he can never see any interview of himself being broadcasted on any of the 2 TV stations for all of 6 years. In 2020, a gentleman by the name of Rohan Chung ran as an independent candidate, and the media had no problem focusing on him, even when he was for the most part not taken seriously by the wider public. So, why is there so much hesitation in televising an individual like Toraino Beckford, who has amassed thousands of supporters online, and who has developed some of the most transformative policies in politics today? Listen to this phone call, and comment what you think about the entire ordeal.
Hello.
Hello?
Yes, good night.
Yes, good evening, sir. Milton Walker returning your call. I'm sorry I wasn't able to call you back earlier.
Okay, that's okay.
hmm
Yes. I was intending on doing an interview which I discussed the transition of Jamaica from currently to a republic, because the Queen passed recently, and so we have a new head of state,
hmm
and therefore I wanted to even use the platform in order to declare my intention to represent the people as head of state of Jamaica.
Well, how do you plan to do that when you do not even know what the format is or of the republic that we'll be adopting? Although I think there's consensus that it will be a ceremonial head, like Trinidad or Dominica.
Well, I don't think so still. I don't think that is the best course of action for Jamaica right now. I think it's best if we have an active head of state who involves himself in the
You think it's
political
best
process.
if we have what?
I think it's best if we have an active head of state who involves himself in regulating the political process.
That we have a president like France or
Yes,
America?
I think so, yes.
Why? hmm
Because they can play an active role, not being a partisan individual. They can regulate corruption within the government and regulate the activities of the PNP and JLP. We see where persons like Royal Reid was charged, but he's still on bail, and we don't know when his trial is going to happen. Almost similar to that of Current Spencer. So a lot of these
Yeah, so what would
individuals
a
would
head
be.
of state be would make change any of those issues at
Yes,
all?
you'd have the authority to ensure
When you say the authority
prosecution and that.
interfere in the judicial process, that's what you mean?
Not necessarily interfere in the judicial
No, it
process,
must be that. It
but
must be
we
that.
already have suspicion to believe that the judicial process is not corruption free, in the sense that it is very sympathetic to that of corrupt politicians. We have seen Current Spencer
Oh,
walk,
you
and
believe
we
our
expect
judiciary is
Royal Reid to be
corrupt?
the same. Excuse me?
So I'm not hearing you now. You sound like
Sorry
you're
about that.
breaking up.
Sorry about that.
Hello?
Yes, are
Yes,
you hearing me now?
I'm hearing you now, sir.
Yes.
But explain for me though, sir, because I'm a little concerned with that particular viewpoint that you have. That if you think if we have a head of state with executive power, that they will ensure prosecution, I want you to be a little bit
No,
clear for me in that.
yes, not necessarily to intervene in the judicial process,
No, I
no.
never said that. I'm move away
Yes,
from that. I'm saying to you, sir, you said that if we had a head of state,
yes,
like in America or France,
yes.
right, that things like the Royal Reid and Current Spencer wouldn't happen. That's what you said.
I don't say it wouldn't happen, but an individual in that position could
No, that they would
encourage.
be sorry, not that it wouldn't happen. That they would have, we'd have ensured that they are prosecuted properly. That's what you said.
Yes, an individual would be separate from the political interest, so therefore they will be better positioned to not be
So,
concerned about their interests, and
but let me
therefore,
ask you
yes.
this, sir. Let me ask you this. So, how do you propose for one us to elect this person?
I think voting through the wider Jamaican
Oh, you
society.
think we should get the majority of votes?
Yes, I
Okay.
think it's the best
And you
course. Yes,
think, right, that
yes,
a given that or we have a two-party system firmly entrenched, right, from 1944, that is what, 66 plus 22, that's 88 years, right?
yes,
88 years of democracy. We have had a solid two-party system, right?
Yes.
that a third person gonna be able to come in from another party
No,
to
it's not a
win?
party, I think the head of state should be non-partisan. He should not be involved in any form of party. He should be an individual who is
Yeah, but on
completely,
what basis
yeah,
is he or she gonna be elected,
be
sir?
elected. Yes, no, as head of state,
Yeah,
that
but
is separate from the
all
party
right,
process.
sir,
No,
sir,
no,
hold on,
Mr.
hear me,
Walker.
hold on, sir,
Yes.
hold on. I think you're incredibly naive and don't understand how these things work, right? But let me explain to you, sir. All right. In America, the president is supposed to be above the fray. That's what they say. But he always is, for the last 100 and odd years, been elected from one of two parties. Yeah, always. No other person has come close to thing there. And the issue is to get somebody to get win an election of whichever stripe, whether it's a local council or a constituency, a seat, or a national poll, you need a party machinery, sir. Yeah, that's the first thing we're telling you, right? And that party machinery for both of them well oiled. Yeah, so they're going to be always up front. I'm not saying if you have a third candidate from another party or from who is cleared supposedly independent won't get on the ballot, but I think the chance of them winning very slim because if that could happen, we would have had other people in other seats because it's much easier to win a seat than to win a national election. Yeah, you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So
Yes.
that's the first point I'll make to you. So that idea not gonna work, right? The second one I would say to you, if you want to talk about more reforming our system, a much better or sure thing that is likely to institute reform is proportional representation. Yeah, and that will break the stranglehold of the two parties within two elections. Yeah, easy. Um, so, for example, what you'll have is anybody can come put up a slate of candidates for election, and any party that gets over 5% will get seats, right? You'll be guaranteed like 2 seats in the parliament, like and as your percentage goes up, because this is what they have in Germany, it exists in a couple other countries, in Israel and countries, and Italy. The problem with it, though, sir, is with that parties gonna have to cooperate because it's hardly likely that one party would win 50% of the votes. It's hardly likely, right? Because you'd be able to have a party that will say focusing on the environment. Because in Europe, every country, apart from Britain, have a Green Party, right? And the Green Party gets votes. Because in Germany, you have the Green Party, you have the FDP, you have the SDC, that's the Social Democrats, and you have the Christian Democrats. And you have a Die Linke, far left, and you have a Volt for the People Party, which is far right. So you have about 6 parties that get votes and get in the Bundestag.
Yes.
And so in Germany, since the war, when they lost the war and they've had elections, no one party has ever won a majority. So you always have to have a coalition of at least one additional party, sometimes 2 more parties, right? What that does is force parties to compromise and come together and work together. Yeah? So in the current German coalition, right?
Yes.
You have the Social Democrats, which is the left-wing party, and you have the let me tell you who else is in the it's 3 parties. It's the SDP, the Green Party, and the FDP. Now, on the face of it, it's 3 different parties. The Green Party is very pro-environment. They want to cut emissions, so them anti-cars. They want to promote public transport and big investment in transport. The Free Democrats are more free market people, and the Social Democrats are more socialist. Yeah, that's
Yes.
so
I
3 of
get
them
the
come
idea now.
right. So
Yes.
the 3 of them come together. They've been running Germany since last year September. Well, it's more December than they settled on the coalition. The election was in September, but they agreed on and it took them 2 months to arrive at agreements on the coalition on who gonna get which ministry, who gonna be the chancellor, and all of that. Yeah. And so the current chancellor is Olaf Schulz. He's the head of the German, the Social Democratic Party, right? And so the policies of this government is reflective of the interests of the three parties. So it's not just one. Yeah, the Social Democrats may get a bigger say because they have a bigger number, more seats than the others, right? But what it does is create, and all of Angela Merkel's time in office, she was in coalition. At some point, she was in a coalition with the Social Democrats too. Sometimes she was in a coalition with the the FDP and the Greens. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So hold on a second. Sorry about that.
Yes.
Yes, sir. So that will force consensus. What you're talking about is a very airy-fairy idea. Not gonna
necessarily.
happen.
I'd
No,
love
man,
to
I'm telling you.
explain my idea. I'd love to get a chance if that's okay with you.
Well, sure, I can. You can, but I
Yes.
thought you explained it to me already.
No, I didn't
Explain it to
actually,
me.
but you spoke about the United States government and the fact that the United States government is not necessarily a president and prime minister system. The both posts are united, so it's not necessarily an accurate representation of what would happen in Jamaica. And two, we never had an
I did
active
say
head
the
of
French,
state in our
I said the French, because
yes, because the
have a
French
prime
have a
minister.
similar system to ours. Yes.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
No, the French would have a similar system more to ours than what
No,
with
they
the
don't.
United
They
States.
don't, sir. The person with the power in France is a president. He appoints a prime minister. The prime minister can be dismissed by the prime minister.
No, in the sense that we have both a president and a prime minister. That is what I'm saying that this country
No,
is
but
aspiring
you
to.
can't just use it, sir, like that, because
No, but
hold on, sir. The situations are not the same, because if we had a president like in Trinidad, right? Trinidad has a president and they have a prime minister. The person with the executive power is the prime minister, not the president. Yeah, and in France, it's the president who has the power, and he appoints. The prime minister is not even elected him; appoints somebody the prime minister. Yeah.
Yes, I understand. As in Russia and other places, yeah.
In Italy, there's a president and a prime minister, but it's the prime minister that has the executive power. Yeah.
Yes, but I'd like to make one point, please.
Well, make your point,
yes.
sir. Mm-hmm.
Jamaica, throughout Jamaica's history, 60 years after independence, we have not had an active head of state. This is a new experience for us, and therefore we can structure and tailor our political interests to our desire, as in the case of the United States, that is unique, as in the case of France, which is different from Trinidad. These are unique political establishments that were formed to serve the interests of the national development.
Yeah,
and therefore, in Jamaica, where we have political corruption, I'd love to finish, please. In Jamaica, we have political corruption, rampant political corruption. We have stagnation. We have a relationship.
Political corruption in the United States.
Yes, not every country, but it's not unique. But at the same time,
hold on.
Yes.
I would not be. No, it's not the time to use the American political system as a thing, because as you can see, it's riddled with
would never actually aspire to that, because we wouldn't be losing the prime minister. The president and the prime minister would be two separate individuals.
Yeah,
in the United States, we do not have that.
So you're saying power? So what would be the point of a prime minister then if we have the president?
No, the president is there to regulate the efficiency of the government system. You have to remember now, prime minister is an administration now. And whether or not the PNP and the JLP win, this is a different political administration, and they go back and forth. And many of these times, please, just let me finish. They do not aspire to long-term policies like Jamaica 2030, or to get railroads set up, or to get renewable energy. These are things that many times fall through the cracks because we have different administration and different political leaders. And in having a structured head of state, you have someone that can aspire to and give structure to the long-term policies of Jamaica. And not only that, regulate our political corruption. And the fact that we, as Jamaicans, believe that there is a legitimate connection between crime and politics. And therefore we want an active political regulator who is above the authority of the PNP and the JLP, the Prime Minister and the opposition, that can regulate them because their influence allows their corruption and their party politics to dominate. And that is the case that we see in Jamaica, where many of these politicians aren't being prosecuted. So I'm suggesting that we'll have presidents who are elected not from parties but who step forward to the people to dictate their intentions for the people and their platform, and the people vote on them as an individual, not as a party representative. That was my intention. Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a good weekend. All right?
Yes, sir.
This is the type of combative approach that Toraino Beckford receives from the media, just for a simple interview, that he is democratically entitled to. The democratic framework of each country tends to be unique to its particular political needs, and therefore, Jamaica's political system does not have to mirror that of the many diverse pre-existing systems. Additionally, a ceremonial head of state, who does not perform a practical role in politics, is simply a waste of taxpayer money, and is not in any way a political necessity. So, instead of preserving an unelected foreign monarch, whose ancestors enslaved our ancestors for centuries, while paying the Governor-General millions of dollars annually to represent colonialism, racism, and oppression, the people of Jamaica should have no trouble giving Toraino Beckford the opportunity to prove himself in a simple televised interview. Here are the roles that are required of a head of state within the Jamaican context.
As a political executive, entrusted with the authority to monitor, advise, and penalize the political establishment, the scope of his duty would entail. Number 1. The President will introduce legislation in Parliament to remove custom duties on technology, so that Jamaicans can buy smartphones, laptops, machinery, and even vehicles, and don't have to pay anything at customs to bring it into the country. This will inevitably make Jamaicans richer, and experience a higher standard of living. Number 2. The President will use crowdfunding, corporate sponsorship, and government investment to assist thousands of Jamaicans in starting and operating their own businesses, so that our economy will not remain dominated by foreigners. Number 3. The President will negotiate diplomatic agreements to give Jamaicans visa-free access to the many countries that are currently restricting Jamaicans. This is called the Stronger Passport Policy, and it will give Jamaicans visa-free access to many regions of the world that we currently don't have access to. Number 4. The President will minimize hunger and climate change in Jamaica by planting millions of fruit trees throughout the country, while lobbying the United Nations to recognize the global objective to make food abundant and affordable, and available to everyone in need, by the year 2040. Number 5. The President will monitor government corruption, and ensure the arrest and successful prosecution of corrupt politicians in the government and opposition. Number 6. The President will audit government finance by monitoring all tax dollars collected, while intricately tracking how it is spent. He will then submit annual reports to the public, so that it becomes almost impossible for politicians to steal or mismanage taxpayer money without being exposed. Number 7. The President will enforce a strict retirement age for politicians at 65, and see to it that politicians don't establish political dynasties, and introduce their children and other family members into politics, in order to continue the cycle of corruption. Number 8. The President will prevent persons in government from influencing the police high command, or its leadership. All police commissioners will be elected only by members of the JCF, and therefore, free to investigate and arrest corrupt politicians, whom they owe no loyalty to, for giving them their jobs. Number 9. The President will use the Army to dismantle all garrison communities, without the approval of the corrupt politicians, who use politically controlled dons to streamline votes during elections. Additionally, the President will use the Army to detain all gang leaders, dons, area leaders, drug kingpins, and any high-level criminal that the current politicians tolerate and work alongside. Number 10. The President will introduce legislation to allow citizens to carry pepper sprays, stun guns, and other instruments of personal protection, so that they have a fighting chance when confronted by criminals. Number 11. The President will structure Jamaica's foreign policy to meet our racial, geopolitical, and economic needs by facilitating the unity, cooperation, and the eventual collective sovereignty of all black nations in the world. Number 12. The President will modernize and industrialize Jamaica by encouraging the development of new industries and increase Jamaica's export market and export potential. This will invariably increase the value of the Jamaican dollar and contain our decades-long fiscal recession. There are many more policies which haven't been outlined for the sake of time, and therefore, viewers are encouraged to visit the campaign page of Toraino Beckford, in order to be adequately informed about the full scope of his platform. These, and many more duties, are the
Please help Toraino Beckford in getting a televised interview that is broadcasted throughout the country, because he has some very practical ideas that will no doubt advance our nation, but at the expense of corrupt politicians, who want to keep us under British colonial influence, while selling out our birthright to the Chinese. So, it should come at no surprise that JLP and PNP politicians generally speak only bad things about Toraino Beckford, and never allow him the opportunity to be televised since February of 2016. A free and fair media is critical to the maintenance of democracy, and only the people can reject a potential candidate for public office, not the media, which seems to be controlled, and not the politicians, who are clearly blacklisting a political opponent from the media. If we are serious about our nation's democracy, and the freedom that it offers us, then we must make it our civic duty to see to it that Toraino Beckford is given a televised platform to communicate his intention to represent the people, and outline his plans for the people. Here is an interview that Toraino Beckford conducted with an overseas media house, on the day that Prince William visited Jamaica. It is interesting how overseas media have no problem interviewing Toraino Beckford, but the local media in Jamaica is somehow being discouraged from doing so. Is that enough evidence that the media is being controlled in Jamaica? Decide for yourselves.
Well, yeah, I think we should emerge from colonialism, from removing the vestiges of colonialism, and to define our own national identity. And a part of that is our political identity. From we can develop a political identity that best serves Jamaica, that assures progress and assures pride, racial dignity and respect, then we can definitely emerge as a nation that have a long-term vision and a long-term potential for our people.
But it's right that there are a lot of people in Jamaica who want the Queen to remain as head of state.
And there are a lot who don't. So what we need to consider is what is the best course of action for the people of Jamaica, both racially and politically. And when we consider those factors, I think that is the best course of action to actually remove the Queen as head of state and have a Jamaican-born black individual to embody that position, to show that we have overcome colonialism, racism and slavery, and to show that we have now emerged as a sovereign independent people who want to define our political destiny.